Hi guys. So I did my virtual presentation on the Kansas error monitoring strategy. This strategy basically targets students who may have trouble picking up grammatical and syntactical errors within their writing. So for students who have disabilities, it helps them to improve the accuracy in their writing, and it really helps them to, if they have a lot of errors within their writing, it really helps them to break it down and to find those errors within their writing to make a better piece. So basically what it is, it's an error monitoring strategy that allows students to independently detect and correct errors in their written work. The overall objective for this strategy is for students to proofread their written work for mechanical and content errors and to fix those errors before they turn in a final product. So essentially they're revising it, but it breaks down the steps so that it's easier for them to revise their draft. What does it look like? So the steps to this strategy are that the students write a draft of their written piece, but what you want the students to do when they write their first draft is you want them to write their sentences on every other line of the paper. You want them to do this so that there is a space in between each sentence. So once they go over it and they're revising it to do their editing, they have room to mark those errors and fix any errors that they may have. So once they have completed their draft, they revise it by using COPS, which stands for capitals, overall appearance, punctuation, and spelling. So what they do is they write COPS on the top of their page and they look for each type of these errors within their piece. And then they will mark each error with a colored pencil. And then once they have completed this step, they then fix the errors and recopy their draft neatly, and this time they recopy it using every line of the page. And then they reread and they proofread again. We're all familiar with the final draft process. Just to show you guys a picture of what COPS looks like, this tells you, it gives you the mnemonics, so it tells you what each letter stands for, and then it tells you what the student does to correct that error. So like C for capitals, what they'll do is they'll take their colored pencil and they'll write over that error. And then O stands for overall appearance, which includes fragments and run-ons, paragraph indent, margins, note marks, rips. So if they see this type of error, they will cross out the line and they'll write the new sentence above. So that's where the space in between the sentences, the every other line, will come in handy. And then for the margins, they would draw lines down the side of the page. If they see a punctuation error, they circle the incorrect mark or position for omitted marks. And then for spelling, they'll write SP above the word. And then they can then look up that word using a dictionary, the internet, asking a teacher how to spell the word, whichever they can use. So the procedures for this strategy is what you'll want to do is you'll want to explain to the student why proofreading his or her draft is important and why it's going to better his or her writing, because of course it's important for students to understand the objective of what it is that you're going to be teaching them. And then as a pretest, so this is before you've even explained the strategy, you want to give the student a copy of a sample handwritten composition. You're then going to ask the student to identify and mark any errors that he or she finds. So you'll give the student time to do that. And then once the student is done finding those errors, you'll compare the number of errors that he or she found with the number of errors that you found. You're then going to show the difference to the student so that they can see if there's any errors that they have missed or anything like that. So, like I said, this activity will serve as a pretest. And then once the student has completed this activity, you'll explain to the student that you're going to teach them a strategy that is going to help him or her with proofreading their paper. And then you'll go on to describe the steps of the strategy, which are the steps right here in this what does it look like part. Modifications that I found that you can use for this strategy are that teachers can model this strategy to the students to show the students exactly what the strategy looks like and the proper procedures. And you may have to model it more than once depending on the student, but at least the student will get an idea of exactly what they are doing to their paper. I also found that teachers can give the students cue cards that have COPS written on it and what each letter stands for. So if you give the students these cue cards, it'll help the students to remember what errors they should be looking for. And then to even further modify the cue card, I found that for students who need the steps simplified a little bit more, you can give them a cue card with a simpler version of COPS. And this is called SH COPS. So what this mnemonic device does is it breaks down the steps even more. And I'll show you guys a picture of what these cue cards would look like. So this would be the first cue card. Like I said, it shows the letters, what each letter stands for, and what type of error you're looking for that corresponds to that. So capitals, it lets the student know that you're looking for the first word in each sentence, the names of people and places, dates, punctuation. It lets them know that this is going to be around the ends of sentences that are marked, commas. So I really like this because I really like that it breaks it down for students, and I like this one even more. So for this one, it adds two more. It adds the S and the H. So the S equals sentences and the H equals handwriting. And that just lets the student double check, are the sentences fragments or run-ons? Is the handwriting neat and organized? Is it legible? So I am a big fan of the cue cards. I think it's really beneficial for students, especially students who have disabilities, because it's hard to remember what each of those letters stands for. And then another modification is that students can read, they're supposed to write COPS at the top of their paper, and I think it would be hard to read your draft once and look for all of those errors at the same time. So a modification could be that students could read their draft only looking for one type of error at a time. Like for example, they'll read their draft looking for any capital errors. And so they'll mark the errors that they found or that they have if they haven't found any. And then once they have read their draft looking for capital errors, they'll move on and they'll move on to overall appearance. And they'll read their draft looking for those types of errors. And so on until you get to the end of it. I listed 3 resources. The first 2 are the resources that I used to look up information for this project. And then this last one right here is just another PDF that could help give additional information. I couldn't really find any websites about this strategy. I just mainly found PDFs on it. But I like this one because it gives the procedures as it applies to written expression, and then it also gives the procedures as it applies to math. So you can kind of see how this strategy works in a different content area. Like for math, when teachers instruct students how to use PEMDAS, that strategy. So it kind of goes along with it, but I don't know, I just like this one because you can see how it works for different content areas, because when we think of this strategy, we think mostly English. But that's about it.